right, everybody, it's the Jerry Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today, John Richardson, Ponte Vedra, Florida, that is Northeast Florida, by the way, Sotheby's International Realty, and a Breakthrough Luxury member. Thank you so much for coming on the call. It's so, I can't wait for this conversation because there's more to add. But just first, hey, thank you for coming on.
I appreciate that. I'm happy to be here. Honored to be a guest. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah. So besides being a top real estate agent, you also do some coaching and have some coaching training. You also are a triathlete, and you also, in case anybody hasn't looked behind, you love your wife and you love to win.
Um,
You kind of
of
got a
all of
little
those
grit,
things,
right? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say of all of those things that you just said, the one that I'm still getting used to hearing is top real estate agent. That's the one where I'm like, oh, me?
I
It's pretty
love
cool
it.
to hear.
And you are. I think you literally just closed within a couple of weeks 100 million, not 100 million, 100,000 in GCI. Like, like
Yes.
you're just every time we talk, it's the listings are just coming in and your business is growing. And I think what's really interesting to anybody listening is you're newer in the business. You're building your business up in a time when a lot of people are struggling and the opposite is happening. So, and with all of the great background you've got, I think there's a lot that we're going to learn and a lot of awesome insights we're going to get from you today. Um, with that said, I think a fun question, unless there's something better you think you want to add, is like, what's the story? Like, give us the life story and kind of like, how did that lead you on this path of being this top real estate agent that you are now?
Yeah. I mean, I think my life now, like if I tried to envision it 5 years ago, it wouldn't be possible. Like it's just so drastically different. Like if my current self could talk to myself 5 years ago and say, hey, you're going to be a top real estate agent, as you described me. You'll live in Florida. You're going to be um, doing Ironman triathlon. You'll be competing in Hawaii and France, and you and Andrea are going to be working together. Never in a million years is that something that I could have like charted my own pathway to. Um, so a lot of that, I give that up to God and being faithful to His will, and certainly He had His hand in all of this. But the move that my family and I made from Kentucky to Florida just set in motion this excitement for life that Andrea and I feel every morning that we wake up. We're just so blessed to be doing what we are doing, to get to serve people in our community, and just we live our life to make our community better. Like that's our sole focus. And fortunately, we're in a field like real estate where that leads to transactions and a nice, like happy quality of life.
Wow. And something interesting, because you said I could have never charted my path here, right? What,
Mhm.
it- to give us a little bit about what supported about 5 years ago, if you don't, what was
Yeah.
going on?
So 5 years ago, I was working for a health system in Kentucky. It's the largest health system in the state of Kentucky. We had hospitals, 9 hospitals in Kentucky and Indiana. And had a various jobs. I worked mainly in physician recruitment and business development. At one point, I was the executive director of physician recruitment and business development for the health system. And it was going like by all accounts pretty well. Like I had progressive management experience, and any time that I felt like, man, maybe I want to do something a little bit different, I either had like a well-timed compliment or a pay raise or just something that kind of kept me going on that corporate ladder. And during this process, I realized like I want something different. I didn't know what it was. So I took a new job at the organization, took like a drastic pay cut. I took a job that I was happy to have, right? But I was certainly overqualified from the standpoint of the experience that I had. And it was a step back in my career. It wasn't a smart career move, but it was the right career move for me and for my family. And when I made that move, I realized like I have a lot of autonomy in my life that I didn't think that I had. Because previously I'd been, whatever the next job my mentor tells me to do, that's the one that I should do. And all of a sudden, I just felt really empowered to like take life by the horns and like guide my life and create this future that I wanted. So with that empowerment came this like feeling that had been sitting in Andrea and I, and my wife Andrea and I for a while, was like this restless sort of like calling for adventure. Didn't know what it was, didn't know what it looked like. And I previously thought like, hey, at some point I'm going to work really hard so I can take a sabbatical for like 1 month, um, and go like get an RV and travel around the country. But now I'm like, I don't know. So we visited Florida to see my sister. She had moved to Northeast Florida, where we currently live, in June of 2019, and we had a blast. We had like this great week. We thought it was like a really cool place. We sort of were like, man, can we live here? I don't know. And a couple weeks later, after we got back from Kentucky, or back to Kentucky from Florida, I started applying for some healthcare jobs just to see like what would happen. And I kind of like halfway applied for them, almost like if it happens, it happens. But I didn't try very hard because not because I didn't want to go to Florida, but because I didn't want to continue to work in healthcare. Well, we came back in October of 2019 and loved it even more. And this time it was like, for sure, we want to do it. And I remember having a conversation with Andrea, and I said, I don't want to get a healthcare job when we move to Florida. Like, I want to do something different. I don't know what that is, but I feel like it's going to work out. And she looked at me like, didn't even think twice about it, and just said, I believe you. Like, that's fine. You'll find a way. You always do. You'll lead us well, and let's do it. So when we moved here in May of 2020, it was like the middle of COVID. Like, it was a really weird time. Fortunately, Andrea had gotten a job teaching, so she hadn't started yet, but it was kind of an easy time to move because like people were stuck in their houses and nobody was going to school. It was just the whole world was weird at that point. So we moved to Florida. It kind of felt like we did it like in the middle of the night. Showed up here. Andrea started teaching in August, and around that same time in July or August, my mom, who was a realtor, and cool, fun family fact, I'm a sixth generation realtor now, but I didn't even know that.
Whoa.
Like,
So you knew
it's a
better. Oh, you
yeah,
didn't even know that?
I didn't know that until I got my real estate license, and my mom was like, "Hey, I was actually
Wow.
thinking about this. You're a sixth generation realtor." So it's not like it's something that was in my blood and I was destined to do it, but it's a cool story. So
Yeah.
she was like, I think she was honestly just worried about me that, I didn't have a job. And I was coaching. So you had mentioned in the previously that I have experience coaching. I was doing life and business coaching. It was going pretty well. I was enjoying it. Had like clients and I was making money, but my mom was worried about me. She said, "Why don't you get your real estate license? I think you'll really like it." And at first I heard that and I was like, no way, move to Florida, get a real estate license. Like, what a cliche. I'm not going to do that.
You're
Um,
so right. Right. Yeah.
but I started thinking about it.
And
I'm like,
that
I do
doesn't
like,
typically turn out well for a lot of people, right? But
right? That's why I moved to
the
LA and become an actor. Um,
right, the cliche part gets
but,
worse. So
but I started thinking about, I'm like, you know what? I do like people. I like solving problems. I want to be my own boss. Like, as I went down this list, I was like, yeah, I think I might actually really like it. And what do I have? The barrier to entry in real estate, as we all know, is really, really low. But the barrier to success is really, really high. And those two things, I'm like, okay, cool. I don't mind the barrier to success. The barrier to entry is pretty easy. Let me, see how this goes. So I got my license in November of 2020. It was like October, November, somewhere around there. I feel like my first real year was 2021. And the first 6 months of 2021, I closed one transaction. But I would say since then, I probably have averaged at least two transactions a month for the last
that's
3 years. So
that's
it's
insane. That's insane. Like 6 months in, you're closing on average two, and you're picking that up in the meantime, and the price points. That's insane. Like as you look at that, oh man, there's so much to that. Like, what do you came into real estate, your mom was an agent, but what did you really think about, like, what did you expect? Like, how did you think it was gonna go?
I think it worked well because I had no expectations. If it didn't
Yeah,
work out, I didn't particularly like care. I liked coaching, so I had income, and I think that
yeah,
allowed me to build the business organically. And I don't mean to say that a different way wouldn't be genuine, but it was like a genuine sort of like I felt no pressure to sell stuff. I wanted to, obviously, but I didn't pay for leads. I didn't join a team. I just was like, you know what, I'm gonna get on Facebook and offer to help people, or I'm gonna meet as many people as I know for coffee and just get to know them and let them know that I'm a realtor, and hopefully that will lead to sales. So for 6 months, I just did that and was able to build a business that I didn't know it at the time, but like I use this analogy, and somebody that surfs might get it, is like when you're surfing, sometimes you feel like the wave is like bringing you back, but really it's just going to put you in position to ride the wave. I felt that for like 6 months in real estate. I was just paddling, 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 but the wave wasn't breaking, but I just kept going. And then the wave broke, and I was in a good position to ride the wave.
God, that is a great metaphor. It's a great
Thanks.
metaphor because if you didn't keep paddling and positioning, you wouldn't have been able to ride the wave.
Right. Yeah. And
How did you
yeah,
did you know we had the benefit of hindsight.
yeah.
In the moment, did you feel that?
Um, I actually have a defining moment where this is like a weird, it's funny. I don't think I've ever told somebody this. So it was June of 2021. I went to like this real estate mastermind event. And one of the agents in my office, who is an amazing agent, I've learned a ton from her, she was speaking as a panelist. So a lot of people in my former brokerage went there. And the event was great, but I remember thinking like, man, I just wish I could be up there. I want to be up there. I want to sell houses. And at this point, I only sold the one, but I was working hard to like position myself, but I didn't have anything under contract. And was working with only buyers because I think it's easier to be a buyer's agent when you get started. Didn't have any listings yet. Making offers, but nothing's closing. So I'm just kind of getting discouraged. And they had this raffle. And I remember putting my business card in. I had this thought like, if I win this raffle, maybe I can be a successful agent. They're not related at all, obviously, right? Like there's no correlation at all. It's just, I think, something
Right.
that, is a silly thought that I had. And I won the raffle. I ended up winning the raffle. And I think like coincidentally enough, the next week I had 3 things go under contract. It all happened. At one point, I went from having sold one house, then 2 weeks later, and this is that
Yeah.
event, right? That mastermind event. 2 weeks after that, I had, I think, 7 houses under contract. I mean, it's just like avalanche of activity in that summer of 2021 because I
That's
won that raffle.
insane.
Not because I
It's
won
all the
that raffle,
raffle.
but it
And
was
this
all the
this
raffle.
may sound crazy,
The
like
raffle
you're,
gods.
but it is like really like the raffle gods. I love it. Like, or is it like it's like almost like it feels like a God moment. Like God was like, "Yeah, dude, you can." But like, if you go
Yeah,
play the
and you know
raffle
what?
and have
It
that
was
thought and
like,
you lose the raffle, it doesn't mean you're not. No, go ahead.
well, no,
It's
and
crazy.
I do think that God uses things like that to keep you going. Like, he heard my prayer, like, and he's like, all right, John,
Yeah.
I want you to keep going. This is my plan for you. I'm going to make sure that this does. You can win that raffle.
Wow. Now you think about, I think about real estate. People look at this business, and there's a lot of stuff on TV that's makes people hate real estate agents, among other things. And then there's this idea that it's this glamorous lifestyle and all the stuff that people think it is, and you get in it, and it's not. Well, you also are a triathlete, and you're in the race, and you're running the marathon, or you're swimming, or you're swim bike race. I mean, this is how bad I am with
Swim,
triathlons.
bike, run.
Swim bike run. That's it. Right.
Mhm.
Thank you. So like I used to run cross country. That was 3 miles. It was a lot for me. I was like, this sucks. But the point in asking you that question is there's this grit element, this keep
Mhm.
going element, whether it's real estate or the triathlon or like what is it in you? And now we're gonna get into getting started to really getting going. But like what is it in you that when that moment comes where most people do quit, you don't? What is it?
Um, First, I think that I was raised really well. I love my mom and dad, and they're phenomenal. And if they've done many things well, but one thing that they did really well was instill a sense of confidence in myself. That like if I want to do something, I could do it. They've never once been like, no, you probably should lower your expectations or like dream a little less. If anything, was the opposite, right? Like they just I don't know. I don't have a single memory of feeling like anything that I thought I could do, I couldn't. And my parents really fostered that. They supported me and my siblings. I love my mom and dad so much. So and that inspires me to do the same for my kids. So I think that's where it started, was I was just raised really well. I had really good influences from my grandparents and my parents, and loving household like that. That definitely shaped me. I also think there's just something, I don't know,
Yeah.
about me. I'm willing to do the work that other people won't. I realized that when I was young and I wanted to be successful in track and cross country. Like if you put more miles in than everybody else, typically you're going to win the race. And I also realized like that extra mile is often pretty lonely. So if you want to be successful, you just got to do the things that other people won't. It's not that complicated.
That extra mile is pretty lonely.
Hmm.
That's an interesting statement because there's a lot of things that I get from that. Like when you go the extra mile in the moment, it's not fun, but the outcome sure is.
Yeah,
Or
and
when
it
you go
compounds
the,
too.
yeah, yeah, the compound effect of what you do is you look at like, so now you're in it. You're in it. You picked up what seven was that clients, closings, contracts,
It was
listings.
contracts that they all closed, and that happened in like gosh, I mean it was intense. Imagine like only have or selling one house, and then all of a sudden having seven things under contract.
Yeah.
It was intense.
What did you
Uh,
learn? And tell us
well,
about that.
um, so I got a transaction coordinator for that time period because I just had so much, and I literally didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I kind of did, right? I figured it out. I'm resourceful, but it was new. Like this was just a new experience.
You're a problem solver.
Yes, right. And everything in real estate, every problem in real estate, I feel like is solvable, right? Like there's nothing we're ever just like nobody's ever had this before, or like we can't figure this out. And very little is so urgent that you don't have time to be like, all right, this is the problem. Let's think, what is the solution? And you can figure it out. So was able to do that. But I do remember like realizing, oh, all that work that I did, it's paying off, right? And then, you get a couple commission checks and it's like, wow,
This is real.
this is this
This
is
is
pretty
cool.
cool. Like, yeah, all that work was for something.
Yeah.
And then you get to interact with people and they're just so happy. Like, I think I missed that component of like, whenever I bought or sold my own house, I had my own joy. Um, but I didn't like realize that my realtor, and I had a great experience with realtors that I had previously, like that they were probably happy too, right? I just sort of like had this negative assumption that maybe they were just like, oh, I got a paycheck. But I remember seeing those closings and being like, man, I'm so happy. Like I could be part of this. Like I see the joy on their face. So that was like a light bulb moment that I can be good at this. I can have a career at this. And I enjoy the work a lot. And it's challenging. Like, because I didn't want to do something that's not challenging. I'm not, if I'm not being challenged, I don't think I'll like whatever it is. That's why I do Ironmans and all the things that I like doing is because complacency is like a painful death. I just don't want to do it.
Mm. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Is this just this business is it's such a challenge. I think
It really
about,
is.
oh man, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
know. We've even talked about that. Like, you get in this business and people say it's hard. I remember being a brand new, well, I'd been an agent for a year and a half, and I'd finally kind of started doing deals, and I'm in the car with these other big producers, and this one guy's so cute. He's like, I got into real estate because I thought it'd be easy and I'd make a lot of money. He said, I was right about the money. I was so wrong.
Yeah.
I was so wrong about the other part or how long it'd take to make a lot of money.
Hmm.
It also reminds me of when you talk about, I remember being an agent and, in the beginning, it felt so transactional. It really, I did not enjoy being an agent it was a great recession. And that was 6 good years after I started before, ironically enough, I enjoyed what I did because I finally figured out this actually makes a difference in people's lives. The
Hmm.
challenge was cool, but I didn't like the feeling of this it being so transact. For you, you recognized it early on. This isn't just transactional, and I don't mean to sound overly righteous or anything, but that's an important element. Tell us a little, and I think it's ironic that when you're focused on the transaction and the success just for the numbers, it's harder to do the numbers. Now, what
Hmm.
is that? When I say all of that, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your success? And how did you understand this so early? And how do you think it does really contribute to your success and how well you do what you do?
So I talked a little bit about when I got into the business, how I wanted to like build it and
Yeah.
like very strong relationship focused from the beginning. I didn't have like I still I'm I don't know that I've had a commission check come in where it was a split for either a referral and certainly not a paid lead. I don't maybe one referral or something like that. But
Wow. Yeah.
most of the business has come from either like a past client or friend referral or somebody that I'm friends with or somebody that I've interacted with in a way that like they came back to me or Andrea and said, "Hey, we'd like to list our house or buy a house. Could you help us?" Um, so it was the intention on the front end, like I'm willing to grow this more slowly in the manner that I want to, because I want to be a relationship based real estate agent. Like I want to work with people that I have a relationship with. And that's harder in some ways. Um, because things are personal and, even if you do everything as well as you can, sometimes it doesn't always work out. But, I'm of the opinion that our relationship, if it's outside of real estate, can run parallel to like my relationship as a realtor. It doesn't matter necessarily if we have a relationship or not. You're going to get the best effort that we have in every single possible way, regardless. So it's never going to be for a lack of trying if something didn't work out. But our relationship can coexist simultaneously, if that makes sense.
So there's a little saying I used to say to myself when I was wanted, because I always you and I have this, like, we like to be challenged and we like to be the best. And sometimes I would remind myself, if I if I slow down now, sometimes when I go slower, I get there faster, because I find that a lot of times people think I've got to buy leads, and I'm a little opinionated about that approach, and it's not a good one,
Mm-hmm.
because I find that that you said something interesting, is it's like I thought, well, if this is how long it takes, that's okay. Someone who's very driven and likes to move fast and likes to be challenged. Now, the other irony of all of that that I love is that in that mindset of like, I'm going to do this the right way, if you, with the benefit of hindsight, looking at what happened, your success has been exponentially rapid. We're talking about 6 months in one deal. That sounds slow. That's not even slow. And then once you hit that 6 months, you've got before you know it, you've got 7 properties under contract at once. And then you've been rolling. This is unreal. This is really fast success. Isn't that, that's ironic to me? But it's about honing in on, focusing on the service, focusing on the purpose, focusing on doing something really well. And I think an outcome of being really good at something adds speed to it. It just happens to go faster if you're really good at it, rather than trying to be fast and throw away quality. Well, that's kind of like you can't be fast without being good at it first.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard the analogy, sometimes you just have to build a faster car, right? So it takes a little bit longer to build a Ferrari, but it's going to go a lot faster once it's completed.
Oh,
Um,
I love
so,
that.
and it's really tough when you're in the moment. Like I said, that pre raffle, God intervention there. I was
Yeah.
like, maybe I'm not equipped to do this. Maybe it's not going to work. So it's not always easy to be patient. But if you're patient and consistent in doing the hard work and doing the work, you will get the results. Like it's just impossible for that not to work out.
Man, those were a lot of good. Sometimes you've got to take the, I don't remember, you've got to take the time to build a faster car. How
Hmm.
ironic.
Yeah,
I love
it
that.
is.
So now that you're in it, right? Now you've been doing this for about 3 years, is that right?
Yeah, almost 3.5.
Not very long. And you're running like a guy who's been doing this for 10 or 20. And being someone who we've been on calls together, you're thinking and doing business that way. This isn't a fake it till you make it situation. So
Appreciate you saying
it's
that. Kind of
it,
feels like it.
it's true. So as you look at that, and you've gotten in the business and you've gotten so many transactions and so much experience, what are some of the, when you look at, well, I want to ask you this one first. Like, what has been your biggest kind of challenge that you've overcome, and or epiphany that has come to you in your time in the business so far?
That's a good question. Biggest challenge is probably just the mindset. Like the no specific deal will be as challenging as the thoughts that you have at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep. Like that is 100% the hardest part about being a realtor. And anybody that is in real estate or probably any sales professional is going to know what I'm talking about. Is that when you wake up at 3 o'clock and you start thinking about deals, or you start thinking about deals that might fall through, or deals that you want to have but don't, or like clients and the follow-up that you need to do, right? Like I didn't expect that component of real estate and like that component of the difficulty of real estate. So that is by far the mindset that it is required to be a successful agent is the biggest challenge. Fortunately, I kind of like that. And I know that, one thing about mindset is that if you can think something negatively, you can think something positively, right? I'm in control of that thought process. Not always easy, but I can coach myself into turning things into a positive when they need to be. The biggest epiphany, I think, was that I actually like doing this. I enjoy being a real estate agent. I don't mind telling people that I'm a realtor. At first, I like wanted to call it something else because I didn't want to say like I'm a real estate agent. Um, and that was a me thing, right? Like there was no good reason for that.
Right. No,
But
but they're kind of, I would argue, I would say maybe there is, that maybe there is. I remember being a real estate agent and I would be in defense of people say, well, what do you do? And I would say, you don't want to know. I wish I'd done
yeah.
that sooner because they'd get curious and I'd say, you really don't want to know because you may not want to be my friend anymore.
Yeah.
And then once I said it, they would kind of go, oh yeah.
Hmm.
But they'd at least be my friend because at least we owned it first before the truth came out, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but back to, you found out you actually enjoy this. You found
Hmm.
out there's some things about it you just don't know that happen in this business that are such a struggle. And that is part of what kind of feeds the drive. That's part of what feeds the drive, gets the problem solver going, and makes you just a better and better real estate agent.
Yeah, and there's so many like fun components to being a real estate agent. Like Andrew and I will sit and talk about marketing, or we'll think about like a client party, or we'll think about, um, how can we do a community event? Like we get to be so involved in our community and do all of these things that we always wanted to do, but had like work obligations. Now our work obligations is doing these fun community things that we've always wanted to do anyway. So that part's awesome. And one of the things I think about that people don't understand about being a realtor is like people only know what they see. And real estate agents always celebrate their success, always talk about closings. And, it's one of those weird things, I think, where, people know how much money you make, right? Because they kind of back end into, 2.5% or 3% of a commission. And, you just said that you sold $10 million, like, well, it must be pretty nice, right? But they don't see the 3 o'clock in the morning wake ups. They don't see that at 5 o'clock most mornings or 5:30 in most mornings. The first thing I do is come to my computer, look at the hot sheet or look at properties or send emails. They don't know that like I'm showing houses at 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night or like all day on a Saturday, or that I've worked and showed houses to somebody for a whole week straight and then they decided they wanted to move to Tampa. Like all of
Yeah.
these things that, it's just part of being a realtor. People don't see that. They only see the success. So I think the general perception from the public is that, oh, it must be really nice to open up a door, write a contract that has no issues, that closes in 2 weeks from a cash buyer, and you just made $25,000. Yeah, that's probably pretty cool. That's happened like one time.
Well, not only that, when that happens, all the other things and the years of experience and all of the other things that have happened that even led up to that. I mean, it's
Hmm.
like real estate agents, we're not getting paid by the hour and not even the transaction. Like we get paid at the closing, but how many transactions fell through? How many deals did we get our clients out of? Or do we write a
Right.
contract to make sure they could get out of it? Because that's how we're serving the client. When it closes, we happen to get paid, but how much other stuff is going on that people, like you said, have
Yeah,
no
people
idea
have
about?
people have no idea about it.
No idea. And
Absolutely.
it's funny because as real estate agents, like in front of the fancy car and like
Uh-huh.
making money and the TV shows. And it's like, no wonder people hate real estate. No wonder. Like, no wonder people hate real estate agents.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
I
all
mean,
right.
totally. I get it,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not lost on me why people do.
Right. When you understand their perspective or the general public's perspective, of course they hate real estate agents because they don't know. They just
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah, and I say all of what I just said, but also with the caveat, like like I feel totally blessed to be in this profession, to be able to help people, to have the income and the success that comes with being a top realtor, like all of that. So blessed and thankful for every opportunity. So I don't, I hope it didn't come across like there's this woe is me with being in real estate.
No.
That's not it at all. But there is another side to the coin that I don't think that people understand or realize, nor do they need to, because one of the things about being a high performer is that like you you should be able to make it look easy, right? Like if you watch the best in the world do anything, like the best um, pitcher, right? Like he throws a fastball 100 miles an hour. It doesn't look like he's throwing it that hard or he's trying really that hard. Or the guy that runs a sub 2 hour marathon, like he didn't even grimace in his face until he was like 1 mile from the finish line. He just looks so smooth and so easy. So it's not surprising that people see the best real estate agents performing really, really well, looking out for their client's best interest, having these really successful closings. The client has no idea what's going on, right? They just show up and, you
And
know,
they're not supposed to, right?
right?
That's
And
our
they're not,
job to
that's
keep
exactly
it.
my point.
Our
Yeah.
job is
It's
to
like,
make sure, their job is to make sure they don't, because that's what we're getting paid for, to carry the burden, to get it done for
absolutely.
them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that burden is heavy. I think that's one of the things that maybe I wasn't ready for too, especially now that we're in a more challenging market. Like deals aren't like silky smooth anymore.
Yeah.
There's hurdles and you got to be very on top of things. And it's much more difficult for transactions to close now than maybe they were 3 years ago.
So, they're more difficult to win too.
Hmm.
I think about, like, there are a lot of people who got into business when it was easy. And I would actually, like, I'm not sure, in my opinion, when the market gets too hot as an agent, I was like, I don't like this anymore, because it's too fast. We need to slow down. We need to look out for the clients. And I like earning the business a little bit. I like the challenge, and I find that fun and exciting. But all of that being said, a lot of agents got in the business at that time, and a lot of agents who got in the business in that time are now experiencing, it's right now, I'm looking up at the right to see that we're going to release this in May, and it's the end of April. It's spring of 2024. It's not a typical spring of any real estate market. It's a tougher market.
Hmm.
A lot of people only a lot of people are feeling the pain of that. In your case, you're doing the opposite. Not only did you have this, what felt like a slow, but you took off pretty fast. You're continuing, your trajectory continues to remain upward. Um, there's a mindset question I could say, well, how is that? But I think another thing is, and you answer the question that lands for you, is as you look at your processes, your conversations, your listing appointments, if I'm a real estate agent listening to the show, I'm going to go, yeah, but let's get in the weeds. Like, what's he really doing? How's he doing that? What's going on behind? Like, what's really good? That
Hmm.
mindset stuff's cute, but what's he doing? What are the boxes this guy's checking? What is it? What lands for you when I ask that question?
I think it goes back to community involvement, right? So and again, doing the things that we always wanted to do, we get to do now as part of work. And we're so blessed to be able to do that. Andrea and I tried to get insanely involved at giving back to our community, volunteering in our church, hosting running events, hosting kids events. Um, I'm a part of a men's organization called F3. I get really involved in that. Andrea does Bible studies. Like we do all these fun things that we really, really would want to do anyway. It helps our real estate business. I think that, one of the things that I found out when I first started working was that I adopted three rules, right? Is be kind, work hard, and do what you say you're going to do. I always like just really grounded in that. And I was 23 years old. And to me at the time, it seemed very, very simple. But I realized like, okay, well, it is simple, but very few people actually do that. Follow those things, right? So I feel like if I just stay focused on getting involved in my community, getting good at real estate. I know it's not like really good English, but getting good at real estate and then work hard, be kind, and do what you say you're going to do. That's the recipe for success. And
You,
then just do it over time. You just don't stop doing it.
yeah, yeah. A lot of things came. First, I want to repeat what you said. Be kind, work hard, like know your craft and be good at it. And then
Hmm.
deliver on your promises. Do those
Yeah.
three things: small promises, big promises, all promises. Deliver on them. And then there's the compound effect of that over time. Something else that was kind of hitting what I was hearing too before, but kind of that leads into that is that at the end of the day, well, there's actually two things. At the beginning of this interview, you said, I could have never laid this out for me. I could have never said, this is where I'm going to land, and actually created the steps and the map to get there. But the one thing that did get you there was values. This values drive action
Hmm.
is aligning to this authenticity of who you are, which that's what that recipe pulls out is Be kind. Be a part of other people. You can't be kind without being authentic. Be good. Hone your craft. Work hard is it was
Hmm.
the words you used. And then the last one was, and do what you say you're going to do. But
Yep.
beneath that is aligning to who you are. Like you also said, what really drives you is serving people and serving communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's going, yeah, 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 but where's the checklist? Where's the checklist?
Was it,
Right?
and
Where's the
you know,
checklist? But I think
it's
that's
a,
a lot that might be a lot of what pulls the right checklist together for you. But what were you gonna
it,
say to add
it
to that?
does. And, you know, I get asked that question a lot, like, well, how did you do it? And people want specific things. And I I think what people want, it's the same person that wants to lose weight and you tell them, oh, well, you got to eat right and exercise. They're like, no, 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 what's the
Where's the
pill?
pill?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, like tell me about a pill. I'm like, I don't have a pill. I just know that if you eat right and work out for a year, you're gonna be pretty fit, right? So if you take care of people, you get involved in your community, you learn real estate for a year relentlessly, you'll probably sell some houses.
Mm. When you think about focus, we can only, it's funny this thing, like when you look at something, your eye can only see, it takes a lot of effort for your eye to see, and it can only see a very small amount of space, and then your brain fills in the rest. So this thing of focus becomes really important, whether it's the questions you're asking yourself, whether it's, what you're physically looking at, and then you think about life and like I think about the trajectory of your success. There's a focal point for you that keeps you on
Mhm.
that path. What is that focus?
Definitely my relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm everything I do, I look through the lens of my Christianity and my Savior. And every morning that I wake up, I am blessed to breathe air and have blood in my veins, and I'm going to spend the hours that I'm awake honoring Him. First and foremost, that's it. And then outside that, I want to do right by my family. I want to love my wife, love my kids, and serve my community. How those chips fall into play after that, I just listen to God.
Wow. For me, that is powerful. For some people, they may say, well, I'm not a Christian. You know what I would say? Beneath all of that, whatever faith is for anyone, and
Mhm.
there's a powerful it's faith and gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first, my morning prayer every time my eyes open and I'm awake. Thank you, Lord, for waking me up today. After that, like, what the creator of
Wow.
the universe woke me up in the morning to live out his purpose. What more could go? Like nothing could go wrong.
Living a greater purpose.
Hmm.
There's a book, and then we're going to do the final three in a minute, but maybe I'll say that. Have you ever heard of, do you know who Kit Cummings is? You may not have, he's from
Uh-uh.
Atlanta. Well, he wrote a book and he spends a lot of time in the not so pleasant parts of Atlanta and a lot of times in prisons and a lot of time on death row. And he's a pastor. And I read the book and it's a very, I wish I remembered the name of the book, but guys, if you Google Kit Cummings, but he talks about, you know, it doesn't matter what way you look at it, whether it's life or Christianity, but he's specifically speaking to Christianity. He says, if you keep peeling back the layers of the message of Christianity, of Jesus Christ, he says, the message is if there's any purpose we have on this earth, and this resonated for me. If there's any purpose we have, it's to help one another.
Hmm.
And when you said that, it really brought it out because it's the gratitude in serving that higher purpose that I'm put on this planet for. This world isn't, you may or may not be saying this, but this world isn't one I made up. This is the world that I have the opportunity and I'm grateful to be a part of.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And,
yeah,
and you know, real estate's the people helping business, to piggyback off what you just said. Like that's what this job is. We help people, right? And it transacts in real estate sales, but sometimes, you know, somebody might just, I get called, hey, do you have a gutter recommendation? Right? Like things that just pertain to a home, or like, hey, can you come over and help me move a piece of furniture? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like that's part of this business. It's doing things to help the community.
which is so powerful and it all aligns. Are you ready for the final three?
Yeah, let's do it.
Question number one. Um, as you look at your success, what would you say has been your most powerful tool and or resource?
Powerful tool. So powerful tools my mindset, the same thing that's gotten me to where I am now, like just this optimistic confidence that I had since I was a little boy. I mean, I remember my mom telling me stories of like when I was 4, thinking I could jump across the creek, like just thinking I could do things, right? That has helped me so much, just having this optimism and this confidence and just the gratitude and joy to live life every day. Like 100% that's what it is. Um, the second part of that question was
What did I call it? I
a
said tool and
resource.
resource. Yeah, resource.
Um, resource. Oh, this is what I wanted to say on this one. So my background in healthcare and physician recruitment, and I negotiated physician employment agreements primarily for a few years. That set me up, that experience, and I had a phenomenal boss. I don't know if she'd ever listen to this, but Kathy Zoller, if you are listening, thank you very, very much. Like she instilled this professionalism in me that I would not be as successful now had I not had that experience in the corporate world. Didn't
Mm.
like I said, that job was great for a while, and it once it no longer served me, I wanted to do something else. But I learned so much that's been very, very helpful in real estate from that experience working in the corporate world, specifically in physician recruitment and physician contracting.
So give us an example of your world and paradigm and understanding of business before and after that. And you may have like, what was your paradigm and way of thinking before and after what you learned from her? And or do you have a specific story or example?
Well, working with physicians is a lot like luxury real estate, right? You're dealing with very smart people who value their own time and have money, right? Like and when you're negotiating an employment agreement, you're dealing with physicians' compensation, much like you're dealing with their wealth when you're working on um, a house transaction, right? A real estate transaction. So learning how to communicate with physicians was very, very, very helpful in learning how to sell luxury real estate. Have to be a great steward of their time. You have to communicate very professionally, put things in a very clean manner that makes sense. You have to demonstrate that you have like intelligence and that you know the market and that they're in good hands with you negotiating on their behalf, because that's what I was doing, right? They weren't going to talk to me. They just go over my head if they didn't think that I was equipped to handle their contract. So that experience set me up very well for success in real estate.
And to do that, because we're gonna get some of this out of you. Like as you learn that, you learn the concept of that. Did you learn a certain practice of to make sure this happens? This is the path. These are the things. These are the things that you want to make sure you're communicating. Is there any formula that helps you kind of because they're like a lot of times I find people think they understand the concept, but until they have some more contextual or tangible steps to think and follow, they can't really follow through and deliver on that.
That's a good question. And um, I think it's just become like almost an innate thing in me of
Yeah.
like human interaction. So like if I thought about it for a while, I could think of like, yeah, this is like step by step kind of what that looks like. It's almost like I just learned how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like it would be hard to be like, how do you ride a bike?
Well, and I think a lot of it, just listening to you, and maybe some of this is coming from my own life experience, but a lot of it is understanding that when you go into a situation, it's you know what you're good at, but you've got to hear where they are and what's going on first to even be able what you walk through to understanding in general there it's about their time, it's about respect, it's about knowing that they've got somebody that can do a good job. And the only way you know that that person knows they have those things is very often not from what you're saying and telling them, but from first what you're hearing from them and emulating it back to them to get on the same page to direct things where they need to go.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Actually, if I were to pinpoint a specific thing that I learned, it was to ask good questions and to listen really well and to talk like less than they do. Because ultimately, I found out when I would work with the physicians, it was not about, and this was what I learned this in coaching too. It's very little about me and more about them and their journey and how I can be the guide and them be the hero. Right? Like I don't need me to like be like, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. Like they can be the best, and I'm going to support them in being the best.
Well, the heroes struggle. Like if you watch a movie, the when you the
Hmm.
like as the professional, our job is not to struggle. Back to the example you gave about the
Right.
real estate agent. yeah, there are the struggles that happen and the stress that happens, but it's the main character. Like it's the story brand, which is where a lot the book, The Story Brand, that a lot
Hmm.
of that I don't know if we've talked about that. I think we talked about that book, but right, it's like the the client is here because we're all the center of our own story. And when they're the client, they get to be the main character. They are the hero.
Right. Absolutely.
I love that analogy. All right, question number two. If there is a book that has changed your life and we just have to read, what is it?
Um, well, I've already talked about my Christianity, so the Bible, but not including
That's
the
a pretty
Bible.
good one. Just saying, that's a pretty good one. That one
So many
involves,
real estate lessons in that. You could just flip through
isn't it?
Proverbs and it would just be chock full of them.
Well,
But
how many of those stories change, the meaning changes as you grow and evolve in life? I think it's so, and some of them make no sense, and then one day you're like, oh God, like how did I miss that?
I know, and I love that is like reading the same verse and being like, oh, I love how Jesus used that word there.
Yeah.
So good with words, right? You notice new things all the time.
So
Um,
wait,
s-
yeah, go
okay.
ahead. You're going to give us another one, I think, and I had to add.
Um, so when I first started, I got into real estate. A mortgage lender gave me a copy of The Go-Giver. And The Go-Giver really sort of changed how I viewed interacting in the community and like made, and when I talked about getting really involved in the community, right? Like just give out freely. But the most important part of that was I also have to be willing to receive it full circle, right? And they just really sort of changed how I viewed sales, how I viewed like my role as a real estate agent, and how I could increase, make my community be a better place, and also have a really great quality of life for my family.
I love that. I think it's a lot of times when you hear people talk about the go-giver, and that's, I think it's number five, or
Yeah, the
law of
fifth day.
receptivity. That,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think a lot of times I'm like, everybody's so excited to give what they think is giving, but they've forgotten like some of the biggest problems are presented even when we wake up at 3 in the morning. There's a gift in there for us to receive, and seeing the biggest gift in the problems that are presented to us, or like C.S. Lewis talks about, pain is just God talking to you, which sometimes when I'm in pain, I'm like, God, okay, God, please just let
enough.
me feel. You sure? Anyway, but it, it's in that that there's a, how arrogant of us to think that we can just go around giving without realizing we also need to first receive, and without receiving, what do we really have to
Yeah,
give?
you run out of things to give.
So true, so
Hmm.
powerful. Last question.
Okay.
If there's anything, if this entire conversation is somehow forgotten, but only one thing is left to be remembered, what do you hope that that is?
Um, to love God and love people first and foremost, right? Jesus came and died for your sins so you could spend eternity in heaven. Real estate related, if I could go there, if you're an agent who's struggling, continue to show up positively, meet people, get good at real estate, and get involved in your community. And do it for an uncomfortable amount of time, and it will work 100%.
I love that. Right? Is be kind, work hard.
Do
Oh
what
my
you say
God,
you're
I
going
can't
to
believe
do.
I've forgotten. Be kind, work hard, and do what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
Love it.
Simple,
John
right?
Richardson. Yeah. Yeah.
Not
John
easy.
Richardson. No, exactly. John Richardson in Northeast Florida, Ponte Vedra Beach, Sotheby's International Realty. You are awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.